Sources close to both sides have revealed the truth. Jalen Brunson and Victor Wembanyama are now caught in one of the fiercest rivalries the NBA has ever witnessed. A battle that could completely shake up the future of the league. Moments after the Knicks captured the 2026 championship, Brunson made a shocking move so extreme that the entire league office music was forced into emergency discussions within just 6 hours. And the wildest part? He was nowhere near finished. Just wait until you hear the unbelievable statement he made about Wemby's entire future. For nearly 2 years, NBA media kept pushing the idea that Jalen Brunson and Victor Wembanyama shared a respectful, friendly rivalry. But that carefully built image completely collapsed after a 6-second video surfaced from a club celebration right after the Knicks captured the 2026 title. In the clip, Brunson was seen leading a crowd of energetic New York fans in a loud chant aimed at Wemby. And things only got crazier when the video exploded online, reaching 15 million views in just 6 hours. Behind closed doors, NBA executives were reportedly furious as their clean-cut superstar image took a massive hit. Knicks supporters flooded social media, defending Brunson, saying it represented the toughness and old-school competitive spirit that made basketball great. Meanwhile, Spurs fans argued that it was completely unnecessary for a player to win a championship and immediately make his celebration about targeting Wemby. But the biggest moment came the following morning at the post-game press conference. Reporters expected Brunson to blame the champagne, clear things up, and apologize. Instead, he gave them nothing. No excuses, no hesitation, no backing down. He looked straight into the camera and doubled down with,
"You all hyped him, but forgot who the real MVP is."
A statement that, powerful on live television, wasn't about jealousy or fear. It came from a player who spent years fighting for recognition and proving everyone wrong. And that's exactly where the real story begins. Most fans believed this rivalry exploded because of the unbelievable pressure and emotions of the championship battle. But once people started going back through the regular season history, they discovered something much deeper. The NBA world wants everyone to believe this conflict appeared out of nowhere during the finals. But the actual beginning goes back to March 29, 2024, during a wild regular season matchup at the Frostbank Center. That night, Jalen Brunson looked unstoppable. He delivered a career-best 61-point masterpiece, putting on a legendary show for the Knicks supporters who made the trip to Texas. He ended the game just 1 point short of matching Carmelo Anthony's iconic franchise scoring record, which should have been the only headline dominating the next day. But Victor Wembanyama, still a young rookie trying to make his mark, completely changed the story. Wemby exploded for a historic 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 7 assists, leading San Antonio to an unbelievable overtime win. However, the drama didn't end when the final buzzer sounded. After the game, Wemby found the official game ball, grabbed it tightly, and threw it high into the upper sections of the arena, preventing the Knicks from preserving that milestone ball for Brunson's personal collection. The move sparked major controversy across the league. Many believed Wembanyama crossed the line, and the NBA responded by giving him a $25,000 fine the following morning for the incident. But what most people forgot was what happened afterward in the post-game media room. Wemby sat in front of the microphones and openly praised Brunson, saying he had witnessed something special from him that night. And that moment showed that despite the heated competition, there was still genuine respect between the two stars after battling on the court.
I mean, we see, I've never seen so much greatness before. The season has been going on for just some months.
For Wemby, it was simply about competition. Once the game ended, he showed appreciation for Brunson's performance. But by then, the damage was already done. Brunson had already viewed the situation as a personal disrespect, and from that moment, he believed the idea of mutual respect between them was finished. And honestly, from a competitor's perspective, you can understand why he felt that way. You can't erase a disrespectful moment from a historic night with just a few respectful words during a press conference. Actions speak louder than explanations, and Brunson paid attention to the action. This wasn't about a veteran feeling threatened, it was about protecting the unwritten rules of NBA respect. When a player battles through an entire game and drops a career-high 61 points, that game ball becomes a symbol of that achievement. Throwing it away felt like taking away a piece of history, Even legends like Shaquille O'Neal discussed the situation on his podcast, pointing out how shocking it was for a rookie to deliver a massive 40-point, 20-rebound performance while also taking away the game ball from a superstar who had just created a legendary moment. So, like any elite competitor, Brunson never forgot it, because in his mind, it was a clear message: the rivalry was officially born. Now, fast forward to Game 3 of the 2026 NBA Finals, and that old tension exploded into something much bigger. Early in the first quarter, Brunson wasted no time trying to answer back. He moved into position for what looked like a normal perimeter screen, but once again, Wembanyama made heavy contact, shoving him around the head and neck area and sending him crashing to the floor. The most controversial part was what happened next. The officials allowed the play to continue. With no review and no immediate punishment, the game simply moved forward as if nothing serious had happened, while Brunson got back up and kept competing. However, the following day brought a major development when the NBA's head of officiating, Monty McCutcheon, appeared publicly and admitted that the referees missed the call and that a foul should have been assessed. Even after that admission, the league made another surprising decision by refusing to upgrade the play to a flagrant foul after reviewing the situation. Meanwhile, sources close to Wemby's side claimed that his increased physicality throughout the series was also a reaction to what he felt was overly aggressive defense from the Knicks, who were constantly making contact whenever he attacked the basket. The Knicks' strategy in Game 5 was completely different from their usual approach. Mike Brown looked at Wembanyama protecting the paint and realized that repeatedly challenging a 7'4" defensive force at the rim could end their season. So New York changed everything. They relied heavily on high pick-and-roll actions, forcing Wemby away from the basket and making him defend much farther from the paint. They were targeting him on the perimeter, hoping to drain his energy by making him chase quicker guards for an entire 48 minutes. But the situation became even more intense because this wasn't only about Game 5. Throughout the series, the Knicks' defensive plan was built around forcing Wembanyama into constant switches, tiring him out, and making every possession a physical battle. For example, in Game 4, after Wemby scored a difficult basket against Mitchell Robinson in the post, his emotions took over. He pointed toward his ear and shouted toward the Knicks bench, suggesting they were getting inside their own heads. Then, trying to respond, Robinson took the aggression too far. A few possessions later, rotating in the paint and making heavy contact with Wembanyama's face.
Not much you're going to be able to do about that if you're Mitchell Robinson, but you can see right here, Wemmy's telling him, I'm in your head, as he's going down the floor. This is what...
Now here's going to be the interesting thing.
And that was only one example among many moments where New York brought an extremely physical approach against Wemby throughout the series. Draymond Green even discussed the situation on his podcast during the finals, arguing that the Knicks were playing overly aggressive defense because they were afraid of being exposed by a 22-year-old superstar on the biggest stage. On top of that, if the league had actually upgraded Wemby's foul on Brunson to a flagrant one, it could have created a serious problem because he was already carrying flagrant points from a previous physical incident with Naz Reid in the earlier round, putting him close to an automatic postseason suspension. But if you look beyond the physical battles and the bruises left on the court, the real reason behind Brunson's anger toward Wemby goes much deeper than one playoff matchup. And this next detail completely changes the way people understand this rivalry. The true source of this tension comes from a massive clash of backgrounds and mindsets. On one side, you have Brunson, the ultimate example of a player who built everything from the ground up. He was selected 33rd overall, constantly doubted because of his size, and forced to fight for every opportunity just to prove he belonged. Then there's Wembanyama, who entered the league with expectations unlike almost anyone before him. He was viewed as a generational talent before he even played his first NBA game, carrying the label of the future face of basketball. Brunson's frustration was never about Wemby's height or natural ability. It was about watching the entire spotlight shift toward Wemby, as if the finals were designed to celebrate his arrival, while ignoring the underdog who was actually dominating on the court. From Brunson's perspective, it was the classic battle between someone who had to earn every bit of respect and someone who was immediately handed the keys to the future. Major brands like Nike built massive global campaigns around Wembanyama's alien image before he even stepped onto an NBA floor. Meanwhile, Brunson experienced the complete opposite throughout his journey. He was constantly told he was too small, dropped all the way to the 33rd pick in the 2018 draft, and spent years fighting to gain the recognition that others received instantly. They were competing in the same league, but their paths could not have been more different. So, when the media treated the finals like Wemby's grand arrival, while Brunson was out there dominating opponents. It's easy to see why it felt personal to a player who had spent his entire career proving people wrong. The disrespect toward Brunson reached another level when, back in 2023, Becky Hammon appeared on ESPN and suggested that the Knicks did not have a true championship-level star because, in her opinion, a team could not win it all with a smaller player as its best option.
But at the end of the day, they don't have a dude. You gotta have a dude. You gotta have a 1A dude. And they're missing that at the end of the day if we're just getting down to brass taxes.
When New York finally went on that deep playoff run, reporters brought up her previous comments once again. But instead of changing her stance, she completely doubled down on live television and made it clear that she still believed in the statement she had made.
I said, I don't know why that's being brought, like why everybody's so stuck on that. I said it 2 years ago. I stand by it.
However, the moment the Knicks secured the title, Brunson's own sister Erica immediately went on social media to, quote, post that old music critique with a caption asking what people had to say now that he won. Brunson looks at this 7'4" kid and sees an overhyped media darling who gets rewarded with endless music attention without ever having to grind through the brutal, undersized obstacles that defined his own career. Now, Wemby has put in real work. Nobody's denying that. The training routines, the discipline, the obsessive preparation since his music teenage days in France, nobody can say it's not genuinely impressive. But here's the thing. Hard work doesn't automatically cancel out disrespect. You can grind in the gym every single day and still make a rookie mistake by throwing another player's milestone ball into the stands. Both things are true at the same time. Wemby earned his respect on the court, and Brunson earned his respect music through a decade of grinding. Neither one of those facts erases the other. But here's why the NBA had to give Wemby the attention he got all season. After combing through numerous interviews with NBA analysts and journalists, they all pointed to the same cold business reality. Music. The league office made a calculated decision to ride the Wemby wave because he was pulling in millions of casual international viewers' music who had never watched a basketball game in their lives. Was it justified from a revenue standpoint? Sure, but was it fair to a guy like Brunson who was actually in the middle of the best stretch of his career? Well, that's a completely different conversation. So, Brunson realized that no amount of regular season scoring was ever going to make the media give him the same coverage or attention as Wemby. So, the Knicks decided that if he could not win the popularity contest, he would win it on the court, which was why Brunson took that high pick-and-roll strategy and hunted him on the perimeter. It wasn't about being scared to meet Wemby at the rim. It was just pure elite basketball IQ. He used his lower center of gravity to get right under Wemby's hips and completely neutralized Wemby's crazy shot, blocking reach by stopping on a dime and burying mid-range pull-ups right in his face. Dropping 45 points on 14 of 27 shooting to close out a championship isn't just a big deal. It was a legendary, cold-blooded statement from Brunson that he was not just some small player. He was a champion, and he proved music it. The mind-blowing part about the fallout of this game plan, though, is that Wembanyama still completely locked down the paint and put on an absolute defensive show. The kid did not just fold up and give up because the Knicks were playing him hard. He finished the night with 19 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks while trying to carry an almost dead Spurs lineup. In fact, they only stayed competitive because their rookie Dylan Harper came off the bench with zero fear and cooked the Knicks for 25 points, while the rest of the Spurs veterans decided to go completely invisible and basically just be absent when it mattered most. The final seconds of that 94-93 win were completely stressful, with a tiny 4-point lead barely holding up to officially end New York's 53-year title drought and send their fans into a total frenzy. Kevin Garnett even hopped on social media right after the buzzer to scream about how this was the highest level of basketball we have seen in decades. But, by now, you'd think the drama ended there, right? The Knicks won and that was it, huh? Well, you couldn't be more wrong because after the final game, Wemby made a move that clearly hit Brunson. See, Any fake corporate idea of sportsmanship completely evaporated immediately after the buzzer sounded, and the Knicks started aggressively jumping all over each other on the Spurs' home floor. Normally, players just check the box, do the standard media-trained walk to the center circle, and share a high-profile hug with the guys on the other team. But instead of that, Victor Wembanyama literally turned his back on the entire Knicks team and marched straight down the tunnel into the locker room before the confetti could even hit the hardwood. The internet instantly lost its mind, and every old basketball fan on Twitter started screaming about the 1981 Detroit Pistons walk-off, where Isaiah Thomas and the Bad Boys famously left Michael Jordan hanging after getting swept. The immediate fallout of that walk-off was pure comedy in the press room, because nobody was ready for what Wemby said next. He sat down, looking like he wanted to fight the entire room, completely skipped the generic script about giving credit to New York's defense, and boldly claimed that San Antonio actually dominated for the absolute majority of the series. He straight up told reporters that the Spurs' own internal screw-ups were the only real reason the Knicks were leaving with a trophy, basically calling New York a bunch of lucky frauds. Right as the PR staff tried to kill the press conference, Wemby stood up from the table, stared into the media, and told them, "See y'all never." So of course, immediately Jalen Brunson saw Wemby, who he already had beef with, come on his timeline basically calling Brunson's first championship a complete fluke. His entire humble underdog persona went straight out the window. That arrogant snub is the exact reason Brunson felt totally justified in leading a room of rowdy fans chanting, "Q Wemby." But you won't believe the massive twist the mainstream media completely swept under the rug while everyone was picking sides online. Immediately that video went viral. Spurs fans came out on social media to point out how hypocritical it was for Jalen Brunson to talk about disrespect when he and his teammate literally spent the entire season using their own podcast to shade half the league. Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart basically built their podcast, The Roommates Music Show, into a private media spin room where they can casually trash anyone they do not like without ever getting in trouble with PR. Casual fans think it is just two buddies drinking wine and laughing on a couch, but it is actually a highly calculated way to control how everyone views the league. The funniest example of this happened when Josh Hart randomly decided to destroy Rudy Gobert's defensive reputation on live camera. Hart leaned into his mic and told the music world that Gobert winning the Defensive Player of the Year award is a total joke, because the dude gets completely exposed anytime a quick guard switches onto him at the three-point line. He started naming guys like Holiday and Bam Adebayo as the only real versatile defenders in the league, while Brunson just sat there doing his classic silence routine, smiling into his glass and sipping water like he had nothing to do with it. It is a genius little strategy because Brunson gets to endorse the absolute disrespect to a multi-time award winner while keeping his own hands totally clean, so the media keeps treating him like a golden boy. Rudy Gobert obviously saw the clip floating around TikTok and decided he was not about to let two podcast hosts casually ruin his name, which turned their next matchup at Madison Square Garden into one of the most intense games in the season. During a chaotic struggle for a rebound under the rim, all that build-up tension completely boiled over into a straight-up wrestling match on the floor. Hart visibly shoved Gobert and tried to trip him up while they were tangled on the hardwood, which got him hit with a swift, flagrant one foul after the refs reviewed the tape. But the real entertainment dropped in the post-game interview when Gobert openly called out the Knicks by telling reporters that some dudes in this league need to spend way less time talking trash on independent media platforms and actually try playing some real physical defense on the court. However, here's the part that shocked me the most. This petty beef between Brunson and Wemby had such a huge effect on the rest of the league, because that same toxic energy is the reason the 2026 finals turned into a global event that completely shattered every single modern viewing record. The first 4 games on ABC pulled in a ridiculous 19.6 million viewers, which literally music doubled the ratings from the year before, because people were totally exhausted from watching boring small market teams play zero-stakes basketball. This was officially the most watched championship series since Michael Jordan hit his iconic last shot against Utah back in 1998. You had massive list, celebrities like Taylor Swift, Larry David, and Chris Rock spending absolute fortunes just to secure courtside seats at the Garden and be seen at the biggest entertainment event on earth. ESPN and Fox Sports realized immediately that this personal hatred was an infinite money glitch for afternoon talk shows. So, they manufactured a dramatic narrative that turned a standard basketball series into a life or death battle before the ball was even tipped. Mainstream networks weaponized the absolute contrast between the bright lights of New York City and a 7'4" international alien down in Texas to make millions. And that insane amount of global pressure forced both players to chase historic performances every single night, which is exactly why the physical on-court violence reached a point where players were literally throwing elbows to the face. Brunson knew that if he let a 22-year-old kid take his ring, the media would spend the next decade labeling him a regular season fraud who couldn't win the big one. Which leads me to the question, what happens next? Because this toxic fallout is officially bleeding straight into the upcoming season, and nobody is ready for the consequences. Adam Silver is already sweating bullets behind closed doors, trying to figure out how to schedule the games without the tunnel turning into a fighting pit. The league office knows damn well that the second these two teams step back on the floor, the refs are going to be on a razor-thin leash, trying to prevent a total brawl. Wemby is already locked in his gym down in Texas using this loss as pure fuel to destroy the Knicks next year, while Brunson is actively trying to recruit more physical enforcers to New York just to handle the Giant. This isn't just regular basketball anymore. It is a multi-year rivalry that is going to completely alter the balance of power in the NBA.